Hey everyone, thank you for joining me for this live blab today. I'm Bren, your guest host, and I'm super excited to have Christopher Nolte and Paul Massard with us today. We are all coffee lovers. Do you guys have your coffee with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine. Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah,
And I don't usually drink during blabs, but I may just do that during this one.
what kind of coffee is it?
Well, I didn't get your coffee yet. But that's a whole nother story, right? Anyways, it's coming and I can't wait to try it. I'm excited because it's been fun reading about just how your company came about and whatnot. So I'm going to let you guys talk about that. How'd you get started in coffee?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in coffee now for 10 plus years. I'm originally from Colombia, South America. So my family there had coffee farms when I was growing up. I'm a grad of University of Miami. That's where Chris and I met. So during college, I interned at different coffee companies. I was interned at a coffee company in Virginia called First Colony Coffee and Tea. There I was an accounting intern, but I went in with the tasters and started tasting coffee with them and realized that I could taste what they were describing. And I really enjoyed it. So I figured, why not try this as a profession?
Right.
And then from there, I went off and worked in Kansas City at a company called The Roastery as a green coffee buyer. And then most recently, I was in Hawaii managing a coffee farm and logistics and operations for a company there.
Very cool. So you just met in college then?
Yeah.
Is there like classes you take for coffee?
No, we're both international finance majors, so that helps.
Yeah.
So
We're both business school, so we have that aspect covered. And I was actually out of the industry itself, so I just got into the coffee industry with Paul. So Paul and I started off on a text on my birthday at the end of March of last year. So we both had a desire to start our own company and have something that we could develop on our own and not have to work for someone else. So I was currently doing business development and marketing roles with, like the medical field, logistics, things like that. But I've always worked in the service industry, bartending, being a waiter, things like that. So I had some element of knowledge of fine food and drinks and things like that. So we were able to write the business plan, and Paul moved from Hawaii after we got the ball rolling, and we started roasting about a month ago.
wow. Wait, literally like a month ago.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So we are very much a true startup, and we definitely we love it. We definitely have the foundation. So we tell people we've been roasting for a month, but that's not. We've been roasting as Perla for a month, not actually roasting coffee for just a month. So.
Sure. Well, that's an art. I mean, it's not like you just decide, I'm going to go roast coffee, right?
No, definitely not.
That's very cool. So maybe in the image that I have of you two, if you go to your website at the About section there, where I just shared the link there, if you happen to be in our chat room right now, that what you're standing next to, is that a roaster or what is that?
It is a coffee roaster, yes.
Okay.
So it's there's different ways to roast coffee. You can roast coffee through a conductive heat or a convection heat. This is a Loring Smart Roast, so it uses a combination of both those roasting technologies to really give us a lot of control on the roasting process. I mean, there's a lot of different chemical reactions that happen during the roasting process. I mean, we're removing moisture from the coffee. We're basically browning the sugars in the coffee. And we want to do that at different rates throughout the roasting process to really pull out the best taste of that coffee.
Very cool. So how do you learn how to do that?
I mean, it's a lot of trial and error. I mean, I have 10 years experience doing it. So luckily I got that trial and error out a long time ago. So we're not burning any of our amazing coffees now.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just roasting. It's kind of like baking or cooking. I mean, you just have to do it until you get it right.
That's very cool. So where'd you come about with the name of your company? Where'd that come from?
we wanted a name that was fairly easy to pronounce and easy to remember, but we also wanted to convey a sense of luxury and familiarity. And obviously being down here in Miami, a large Spanish-speaking population, so it translates not only in Spanish, but also in Italian. So we wanted a connectivity and something that was familiar, but not really too traditional for the coffee industry. So that's why we came up with Perla, and then we just put the apostrophe in there to kind of differentiate ourselves a little bit and make the name a little bit more unique.
Very cool. So if you're joining us in the chat room right now, I see we've got some more people that have joined us. Feel free to ask a question. There's a chat bar there. Just do the slash with a Q and ask your question. That would be great. So I noticed on your website, you talked a little bit about Q grade and stuff like that. Like what is that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's the equivalent to a master sommelier of coffee. So it would be, I mean, it's a really intensive exam that you take. I mean, it's 5 days long, tasting coffee, smelling coffee, answering questions about coffee, the coffee growing process, the processing of the coffee, the roasting, picking out defects and any quality attributes in the coffee as well. So it's really just, it's the equivalent of, in the wine world, of being a master sommelier, but this being in the coffee world. And then because I'm a Q grader, I can taste coffee and give it a score, similar to like a wine spectator score on wine.
Okay.
And because of that, anybody else who's a Q grader should be able to taste that same coffee, and we should be no more than 1.5 points away from each other.
Wow. So like, how does that work? Like, what are the numbers? If you've got a really good coffee, what would that be?
It's rare. I mean, 90, 92.
Okay.
I mean, it's really rare to find a coffee that reaches the 90 point. Anything above an 80 is considered specialty grade coffee.
Okay.
Anything below an 80 is commercial grade coffee. Mm-hmm. Once you start getting into the higher 80s, that's when you start getting the really special coffees.
That's very cool. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to name drop any of the chain coffee places. So you're not going to find like, okay, let's just say you go into a, like a Starbucks, right? They're not going to grade their coffee that way. You're not even going to hear that lingo, right? I've never heard it.
No, you're not. Definitely not. Because I mean, the coffee that they buy is I would say it meets that specialty grade threshold, but it's not much more above that.
Okay. Very cool. So so you have to be fair here. You grade your coffee. Do you have other experts in the field come and grade your coffee? I mean, because of course you're going to give yourself a high grade, right?
True. But I do it, it's subjective. So I put coffees on the table. I don't know what they are. I just know what country they come from, and that's it. I don't know who sent them to us. I mean, who roasted them, really anything. When we do coffees from other companies. And then really I go off a number. So this cup is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I score those coffees not knowing where they're from other than the country. I mean, what region they're from, who sent them, what farmer it is, the processing method, anything. So it's a double blind scoring. So I don't know if it's our coffee or somebody else's coffee or what it is.
That's very cool. So not to keep going on the Q thing, but do people have how people have like wine tasting parties and they grade things like that? Do they do that with coffee? Like, do people get together and do this for fun?
We do.
Yeah.
We might be a little weird, but we do for sure. And we also, we love when people come here and taste coffee with us. Just having, 3 cups of coffee next to each other that are completely different and having somebody taste them, it opens up their eyes on the differences in coffee. Yeah. Because usually you just have that 1 cup in the morning and the next cup the next day might be a little bit different, but you don't realize it because you don't really remember what you tasted the prior day.
And a lot of times too, people have only been exposed to poor quality coffee. So they've only been exposed to commodity commercial grade coffee. So they think that that's how coffee tastes. So when you introduce someone to a product that has a nice high grade to it, people don't understand that coffee is a fruit. So a lot of times you should be tasting fruit notes when everybody's so familiar with, oh, it's chocolatey, it tastes like caramel, a lot of times that comes with a darker roasting process, which is what commercial coffee roasters use to mask the flavor of inferior coffee beans. They just over roast it. So it's essentially like putting sauce on a piece of meat to make it to make it taste better. You're basically masking those flavors by over roasting and keeping that consistently over roasted in that case.
That's great information. And I can, you come from a great area down there in Miami. I know some growers down there of houseplants and bedding plants, and they happen to be Cuban. And I tell you, that may have been the best coffee I've ever tasted. Was they're like little shots, but it's Cuban coffee. It was awesome. And once you taste good stuff, it's hard to go back. So I'd love to hear about, can you share a little bit about, like, I saw somewhere in your profile that you travel a bit. You've traveled around the world somewhat, finding different coffees and talking to different farmers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I spent about 5 years traveling all over Central, South America and Africa, searching for coffee, trying to find some of the best coffees out there. And there were amazing adventures. We drove from Kansas City, Missouri to Panama. So we drove all through Central America in a pickup truck. Probably stopped by the police and the military, 24 times on the way because we looked very suspicious, I guess, when we were driving through there. But it was awesome. It was amazing. Just going through all Central America, meeting all the farmers. Every day we would stop at 3 or 4 different farms, just talk to the farmer about what they're doing. And it's also just sharing knowledge, because when you think about the farmers, they're isolated in that particular region of the world or in that little city. So when we go and we see that they're having a problem, and then we can tell them how other people have fixed that problem in different parts of the world or even different parts of their country, that's pretty amazing. And getting to meet the people that actually produce the product is even better. And having them taste it too. A lot of times they would grow the coffee, they export it. So if we would have bought a coffee from them the prior year, we bring them a bag of that coffee so they can see how that coffee is packaged and what it actually tastes like when it is roasted. And that's pretty amazing to them too, because it's the first time that they've really seen the fruits of their labor.
That's very cool. Very cool. So how exciting are you? So drinking the coffee, do you kind of have a cutoff during the day? Because you drink too much, you got to get jittery, right?
Yeah, I just recently encountered that. It was maybe 2 weeks ago. Like, I'm not sleeping that great because I was drinking coffee up until 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
But now we cut it off at 1 o'clock.
Good coffee.
Yeah. We shut the espresso machine down around like 2:30. We have an espresso after lunch, and that's pretty much it for the day because it has some residual effects on your sleep patterns if you're not careful.
Sure, definitely. How fun. So where can we can find you on the web? You can order your coffee there, I'm presuming, right?
Yeah. www.drinkperla.com is our website, and we're now doing a local farmers market in the city of Coral Gables down here. So we had the first week of that. It's just a 2.5 month farmers market. So that's been great because we've been able to meet people, and since we don't have any type of retail store or anything, coffee shop. It's a great way to connect with people and just talk about the coffee. And we have our espresso machine there, so we can give them actual, espresso-based drinks. So that's been a great experience, and we'll be there every Saturday. But primarily for people nationwide, off our website is how they would purchase it, and hopefully get into some other Whole Foods, other retailers like that a little bit later on.
Definitely. That's a great area. I bet that's a beautiful market.
Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah. It's very nice.
So I see you all are on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to share some images from the market.
Yeah, definitely.
And plus some stuff on Instagram too. So we have the same handle there at Drink Perla. So on Instagram, you can see some of our posts there from the market.
Very cool. How exciting! You guys are doing great. It's only been a month.
Yeah.
You've been out there forever. We have, kind of.
Yeah, true.
How exciting. So let's see, we have a couple more people that joined us in the room. And if you have a question for our guest, Christopher or Paul, please just use the /Q and ask your question, or just ask your question. I'm watching the chat room there. Otherwise, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add here?
The great thing with specialty coffee is that it's really starting to expand, and no matter where people are geographically, they can typically find someone that's close by that's a specialty coffee roaster. So of course we would love them to check out our coffees on our website, but typically you're going to have access to some close coffee roasters as well. And one big thing that people don't understand about coffee in a lot of cases is that after 2 weeks, after roasting, that coffee is essentially spoiled. So when you have a bag that's been sitting in your pantry for a couple months, or it was roasted in Italy or something like that, then typically it's not going to be you're not going to have as much of the flavor and aroma and things like that would typically come with that coffee compared to something that's freshly roasted. So we just encourage people to find something that is freshly roasted. That's why we put it on our bags right in the front, so people can see that, it was roasted on Thursday and I'm drinking it on Saturday, and it tastes substantially different from what I'm used to, the bag that I bought at the grocery store. So it's a completely different experience to have something that's actually fresh like that.
Right. That's good to know, because sometimes, I hear from a lot of the coffee, I'm up in Ohio, I'm out in farmland, so it's a little different than down in Miami, or like if I lived in Chicago or the bigger city where you'd have more, access to more of these awesome things, right? But I've always been told that the bean is always fresher. My espresso maker or my coffee maker, I actually grind my own beans. Is there like a science behind that?
Yeah, you really, to make coffee properly, you want it to be roasted within that 2-week window.
Okay.
You think about the whole bean coffee. After it's roasted, it starts to oxidize. So if you grind it, the particle size is going to increase, obviously. So it's going to have, it's going to be more susceptible to oxygen. So we say whole bean coffee is good for about 2 weeks. Once you grind it, depending on the particle size, it'll be good for about 2 days, really, before it's all oxidized.
Wow.
When you store coffee at home, a lot of people put their coffee in the freezer or the refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
We recommend you definitely don't do that, because every time you pull that bag out and put it back in, you're changing the temperature inside that bag, which then causes condensation, which then causes the moisture to get on the coffee, which deteriorates it a lot faster. So always grind it right before you use it, if possible. And then, don't buy a 10-pound bag at Costco. Yeah. Buy a small bag at a specialty market, use it quickly, because you think of it as a loaf of bread. You don't want to leave that out for 3 or 4 months and then continue to consume it. You want to consume it pretty quickly.
That's great. Great information.
Definitely.
And, it's been awesome talking to you. I'm excited to watch you along your journey here. We'll follow you on Twitter. And of course, you can find all this information out about your company can you share your website again?
Yeah, www.drinkperla.com.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank
you.